So here we are, exercise number 29, and we're going to go deeper now into 2-point perspective. So we left off, we started to learn about the 45-degree measuring point and getting some unmeasured cubes down, and we worked on some floors with a measuring point, ceilings to get some scaling around. Now we're going to look at a measured perfect 2-point cube or square, if you would, and turn it into a cube. And I'm going to call this lesson the swinging vanishing points for a reason. They're going to be swinging or altering from our station point. So I'm going to show you that in a moment. Let's first do our setup. So I'm going to get our setup in. I'm going to start from the bottom of my paper down here and go 9 inches. I've got an 18 by 24 inch piece of paper. So I'm going to start and go 9 inches up. And that's where we'll put the horizon line and also, of course, our eye level together. So we've got that. So that's 9 inches right up and then across. And then the center of vision we'll put back again at 12 inches. So if you're not on the metric system, hopefully you can adjust pretty quickly. So now we'll go 12 inches here. And there's our center point, and then let me throw in our center of vision and pull it down, and then we'll get our station point and our cone, and then we'll discuss a little bit further. So center of vision up, right, and then also down, coming down a little bit, and we'll move down. Now I'm going to put the station point 6.5 inches down. I've got in my notes. So from the center point down to our station point, that'll be 6.5 inches. So right there, 6.5 inches down. So to make your drawing look just like mine, best you can, that's where I'll put a little dot there now for our station point. Remember, that's where we are, flapped up here, looking down in. So this is 6.5 inches. This will represent about 6.5 feet, because we're going to have some slight measuring and maybe just a little bit of scale. All right, so there's our station point. That's 6.5 inches down. Let's go ahead and put our cone in. So our cone is at 30 degrees, remember, from our station point. We'll do this for a while. It's always good to remember. So the cone will set in 30 degrees using your 30 to 60 degree cone right through there. And I could get the other side, or I'll just use my compass. I get one side and then I use my compass to find the other side. It seems to be a little bit better and just as easy to do that. And we'll put our cone down. Here we go, coming in, and then right in there, lining it up. Whether it's 30 degrees, and remember our cone is 60 all the way across here. So that's our cone, and we'll stay well within the cone for this simple exercise. And then I'll put the other side of our cone, and then we're ready to go. Coming out here, there we go. There we go, there's our cone. So 30 and 30 in total is 60. Okay, so there we are. Now the thing we want to talk about here is understanding this idea of a swinging vanishing point. And so the first thing I want to do is get a measuring line laid in our composition. Now I'm going to pull in a little bit, and I'll go out when I'm needed, but I want you to make sure this is clear. So let's pull in a little further. Let's make sure this is lined up nice and horizontal to the picture plane of our camera. So we'll pull in a little bit further. Now the first thing we're going to put down is a measuring line. So I'm going to take my T-square, come in, and I'm just going to throw it down about right here. So kind of try to get yours as relevant or as close to mine as you can. So there's my measuring line down in through here, and I'll label it. Let's label it here, measuring line here. There we go, measuring line. All right, so that's going to give us an idea of getting some measurements across this line, so we can bring and add that perfect scale to, or perfect cube look to our cube in perspective. So I'm going to come off center a little bit for our 2-point. Now, because we're in 2-point, I'm going to say we're going to put the corner of our box about right here. So I'll come in a little bit further so you can even see better. So I'll put the corner of the box about right here. Put a little dot there. And I'm just going to raise up the height to whatever length I want. We're still not in complete scale yet. I misspoke slightly on that. So about right there seems reasonable. Okay. Now from here what we can do, because the cube that we have, since we're going to make a cube, we can bring down this distance on our measuring line. Now we could measure this with our ruler and bring it over, or we could bring a compass and bring it over, or we could bring 45 degrees and bring it over. So we'll do a little both, and I'll show you. So from here you can take, I'm going to take my color pencil. So just 45 degrees, I'm going to line up my ruler across here, bring down my 45 degree point through and over. There's that same distance now right here on my measuring line right there. So that's 45 degrees, right? Since the corner of a box would be a total of 90, half that's 45. We'll do the same thing over here. What's another way you could do that? Well, you could use a compass if you didn't have a 45 degree, or you could use your ruler and measure it out. So I'll take my compass and I'll do the same thing, just so I'll show you something different. I think there's different methodologies, and I think that's good to show. So I'll line up my compass here. I'll unroll it out so we can see that about right there. Then bring that distance over, twirl that over just for effect, right through there, and that works right in through there. So if you wanted to double check, you could actually, to make sure this works, actually do the measurement. So I've got an inch here and 1, 2, 3/16, and I've got an inch here and 1, 2, 3/16, and I've got an inch here, right, and 1, 2, 3/16. So it works in different methodologies. So that's really important. Okay, the next thing we want to do now is we don't have any vanishing points, and so now we need to create diminishment to the left or to the right, and that can be estimated. I mean, that means it's not completely determined yet. It can be a little bit more, if you will, random. So you want to figure out your angle of what you want. And so I'm going to throw it about right. Make sure I back up. Make sure we get it in the camera. Pull out just a little bit. And so I'm going to put my diminishment for the left side of my perfect cubed box. Oh, about right here. That sounds pretty good. Looks pretty good. So I'll throw it over. We meet the horizon line, of course. We'll stop at our eye level. Okay, that's going to be our LVP, our left vanishing point. And now I'll do the same at the bottom, because remember we're in 2 points. So I'll do that over here. I'll diminish on this side over, and there we go. We've got our diminishment. Okay. Now remember, any 2-point object, it's got to be 45 degrees from our station point out to the other vanishing point. So that's what we need to determine. So we need a line now from our left vanishing point through our station point. And let me bring this out so we can see that. There we go, a little further. So from the left vanishing point through the station point, we draw a line out. I'm going to do this one in blue so you can see it through here and here. There we go. Out and through, and then back over to the horizon line to find our right vanishing point, but remember, at 90 degrees, okay? So I'll bring out my larger ruler, and we'll set that up, and I'll just arrange my triangle, my 90 degrees here, along the left vanishing point line to it lines up with my station point, and then out to the horizon line, and where that touches the horizon line, I'll put a dot there to show you that's the right vanishing point for our box or our cube. RVP right there. There we go. So remember then, that's 90 degrees down here. This is going to be important later on. Well, it's already important. So we're at 90 degrees right down in through here from our station point. So SP for station point, right in through there. All right, so now that works pretty well. Now if we come in a little bit, now we know where to shoot our diminishment to our right vanishing point. So I'll come back in, make sure everything fits in. There we go. Make sure this is nice and level. There we go, a little bit. So now we can take our diminishment from the corner of our box back to our right vanishing point. That's pretty easy stuff, okay? Right through here, we'll take our diminishment, throw it back to our right vanishing point, throw it back to our right vanishing point. Now we have diminishment for our left and to right. Now, how do we get our perfect cube in? So we've got our measuring line and we know our depth and distance. Now what we need, and this is where the swinging vanishing point comes in, so I'm going to pull back out and show you what I'm talking about. Here's the idea. The idea is this, is that we can use, because measuring points, a 45-degree measuring point in one point is the same distance from the station point to the horizon line. This idea can be transferred in 2 points. Here's why. The left vanishing point, this line from the LVP to the station point, can be swung the same distance up to a place on the horizon line. Let me demonstrate that for you. Let me show you what it looks like. So here's what I do. You could take a piece of string, or if you had a compass that was huge to do that, or I just measure it. But the idea looks like this before I measure it. I want to show you it. So if I have my finger on the left vanishing point and my finger down at the station point, if I swing these up that same distance and touch it right there, that's going to be a measuring point reference for us for our left side, for our left plane, okay? Meaning this side, right? So let's do that again. So this is going to swing from here at the station point and swing up and over to the horizon line. Now, let's do it more properly. That's what it looks like in our mind, but now I'm going to do it more properly. Here's how. I'm going to measure that distance with my ruler because I want that to be exact. So from my left vanishing point in my drawing, lining it up, it's a little bit over 10 inches. It's 10 and a 16th. Okay, so in my mind, I'm going to swing that over, line these up really nicely from the left vanishing point out on the horizon line. I need 10 and a 16th. I'll put a dot there. That is the demarcation for, and I'm going to label this the left plane measuring point, or LMP, left plane or left measuring point. So we have the left side, all right? Now what we need, since we know you're in 2 point, correct, we need it for the right side. So let me sharpen up my trusty pencil. Always try to keep it nice and tight. You'll hear me say this, you know, as often as a broken record plays, right? That's just because it's important. Okay, so now the same concept happens over here, but on the opposite end. Watch this. So from the right vanishing point through to the station point, that swings up and over, right? Swings up. It's equal distance, like being on a compass. This distance swings up and over and stops again on the horizon line. So now I want to formally measure it. We want to get that exact, just like we did in the left plane. So in my drawing, yours might be a little bit different. Measure yours out and transfer it. My drawing is 8 and let's see, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11. Mine is 11 and 8 and 11 sixteenths. 8 and 11 16 inches. So that means this needs to swing up 8 and 11 16 inches from here to there. So I'm going to measure that. 8, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11. Line that up. And then where that meets, right there, 8 and 11 sixteenths of an inch. There is, I'll put a red dot for there. That is my right measuring point. I'll put that RMP. Whoops. Wouldn't be a video of mine if I didn't break a little bit of a pencil. RMP, right measuring point. So let's come in and let's see that. Let's talk a little bit further about that again. Okay, and so we swung up that distance from the left vanishing point and station points out of the camera, but we swung it up to get the left plane over here, this plane going back to the vanishing point, right? And we swung up the right, from the right vanishing point line to the station point, we swung it up to here. That gives us our measuring guide for our right vanishing point. Well, big deal, so what, right? Who cares? Well, Now's the time. Now we can start using measuring points to get a more exacting depth dimension. So let me show you how to do that. Okay, so the first thing we can do, where the 45-degree marks here and here hit our plane lines for our left side, our diminishment guides for our right sides, you guessed it, that's going to come up now and end off in our diminishment. So that's already the cube right in through here. So now let's figure out that depth. So from our 45-degree mark, or the same distance we have here, now we have to go back to our right measuring point from this side. So I'll show you how to do this. So right in through here, line this up, right measuring point through our ending plane on our measuring line. We go back to the right measuring point here. Where that touches, right there, that's our distance now in perspective. That's our measuring. That's what that vanishing point is for that right plane. For the left side, we do it here. So from here and here, right, as where we're shooting from. This is flat perspective here. This is depth perspective here. Let's talk about that again. So from this point, we'll go back to our left measuring point for our left plane. Draw a line through, right? Where they touch our diminishment line right there. You'll get this a little bit complex, but once you get it, you'll go fast. Right in through there, sometimes I have to remind myself to slow down. That's the depth and distance of our perfect cube in perspective right there. Okay, so now what we want to do is bring that up here to our left plane ending right there. Okay, so I'm going to darken this plane in a little bit further here and here so you can see it. Okay, so now we have perspective depth for this measured distance. There's our height. But how did we get that this flat space to go in perspective? We used our left measuring point, which again we brought up and over from our station point. Now let's do the right side. So again, we thrusted a line from our measuring point line, okay, of 45 degrees over, since it was on our measuring line. That's that same distance, and we thrust it over to our right plane, where they touched right there. That's the distance now in perspective space. So we're dealing with both flat, the measuring line is flat, this is important, and this space here and here is perspective depth. That's what we needed, and we're not finished yet. So now, whoops, do you go back to the right vanishing point or measuring point? No, that's not right. Now you have to go all the way back to the left vanishing point. So be careful. I wanted to just show you that. So don't line it here. Now, once you have your measurement guides, you're done with them. Keep that in mind. Once you have your measurement guides here and here, that's important for that, you're done. Why? Because the rest of the plane depth, the diminishment, is back to the left vanishing point. The reference or measuring points were for measuring this space. Once you've got it, you're done with it. So from this corner, we go back to the left vanishing point, and from this corner, you got it, that's the right plane, we go back to the right vanishing point, and that lines up right. I'll overdraw a little bit so you can see it, and I'll come back and capture it and darken it in there and there, okay? It would be a very different looking cube that wouldn't make sense if we used our measuring points for diminishment. Now, see this line, you might be tempted to use that as your bottom line. No, it's right here. Right here, this corner back to the left vanishing point here, and from this corner back to the right vanishing point. All right, let me line that up nicely right there. And you can check it because we need the back of the box, a perfect cube in perspective and 2-point measured, right? Measure that out right there. And of course, we could do scale too. For instance, if that inch and whatever that was, 3/16 equal to a foot, that would be a foot perfect cube. So now we have a perfect dimensional, three-dimensional, 2-point, measured, accurate cube, right? And so you probably know where we're going to go with this soon. We're going to make multiple cubes and use a 2-point measuring point. So how would you find that measuring point to do that? You've got it right through the back corner and through here to here. Boom, back to the horizon line. There's your 45-degree measuring point, right? And then of course you bring those out here, and then of course out here to recreate more cubes, which we'll do next. The first one I'm gonna leave it because I want you to see it, and I might do just a little simple shading on the side so you can see this dimension. But this is in perspective now, a perfect 90-degree cube on either side. So it's equal distance on all sides. That's the better way to say it. It's equal distance on all sides, but now in perspective. So let's review and then we'll get out of this lesson. This was exercise 29. So let's review a little bit. So what we did was we got our setup, right? And then we found our measuring line. Okay, that's the first thing. Then we drew up an arbitrary length of our height. Okay. Then we brought back that arbitrary length on our measuring line by 45 degrees here. Same thing over to here, but we just used a compass just so I could show you something different, or you could have measured it. Then we gave a depth, an arbitrary depth from this height over to the left vanishing point, right? Then from the left vanishing point, we drew this line to the station point. We brought this line, remember it swings, so this is the swinging vanishing point. So this line swings over just like this. It swings, right? Swings up to our left measuring point for our left plane. Then we did the same thing from the right vanishing point, okay? 90 degrees back over, we found that. So left vanishing point, 90 degrees to find our right vanishing point. There's our dimension to our right vanishing point, okay? Then we swung this swinging measurement point or vanishing point up and over to our right vanishing point. It's right here, we swung it over, okay? Then, to come in deeper, come back in deeper. Now we had our measuring points, and so we could take from these 2 points, go opposite and over. Where they meet the diminishment line here, that's our measuring point for this distance in perspective. Same thing over here. So we had our right measuring point for our right plane, our left measuring point for our left plane, which gave us our dimensions. We brought those up, and we could finish off the cube by going back to the left and right vanishing point. It's a lot less complicated than you think. It requires you to get used to that a little bit, but this is going to serve you well in the next several lessons. So you might want to practice this by doing a few more, or doing it on different sheets of paper until you get this procedure down. It's the swinging vanishing points, right? It's exercise 29, and we'll be using it quite a bit. You can use this to scale for rooms, etc. It's really a powerful new technique, hopefully that you're understanding that you'll have in your tool chest now, drawing and observational skill sets. Okay, so there you go. That was exercise 29. We'll move on now to exercise 30. Exercise 30. So now we're going to go a little bit further. We're going to do a measured cube, and we're going to create a 45-degree measuring point, right, from that cube. And then we're going to create multiple cubes from that first one. That's a true cube, right? Not just something where we just guessed at it a little bit, did our best guessing, but this will be a true cube in perspective, and we'll create about 5 or 6 of those with also a gridded 4 using our 45-degree measuring point. Okay, so let's get to it. So I went ahead and took the liberty of setting up my fundamental 4. So a couple things to note. I went ahead and pushed up the horizon line on my drawing to 10.5 inches up. So it's 10.5 inches up on eye level and horizon line. And then my station point down here, remember where our little, our self is down here, right, is 6.5 inches from the horizon line, or our center point here as well. So 6.5 down here, in the middle, of course, at 12 inches, and then 10.5 up and over. So we have a little bit more space down below. So if you need to catch up on that, go ahead and pause the video, catch up, and then we'll get started. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is just let's put down another measuring line. So we'll put this cube a little bit over here on this side, and we'll go to it. So I'm going to put my measuring line down and through here. So here's our measuring line through there. So we'll just label that ML for measuring line. And then I'm going to pull in just a little bit so you can get a little closer and see this better. Coming in. And let's now go for a height for our first cube. Let's put that in here now. So about right here. And I'll go about this high. So I'm not even measuring that or scaling that. That's arbitrary. So I'm going to put that in first. Okay. So we've done that first, right? And so now let's get 45 degrees on either side. So this is playing off exercise 29. And I'm just going to go ahead and use it with my 45-degree triangle. So right there is its distance, flat distance. And then we just flip it over your triangle on the other side, right? And there's 45 degrees on the other side, right in through there. So those were equal space. So those are flat distance, right, for our cube. Or cubes later on. So now we need a diminishment to a left vanishing point. Well, I don't have one yet. So let's set that up any way we want for now. So I'll go ahead and make not a guess, but just an aesthetic decision of how I want it to diminish. So a couple things about station points. Since they come out at 90 degrees, you could set up down at your station point where your triangle is, and you could turn it and do it and preset it because it's 90 degrees. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but for now I'll just set in a diminishment that I want. I think I want it about, I don't know, right here. It looks pretty good. So I can even label it first, LVP, and then set in my diminishment here, back to the vanishing point. I'll overdraw a little bit. Maybe I should go a little further. Let's just go ahead and go further like that. There we go. All right, so we've got our diminishment there, okay? And then now, of course, we need to come from the left vanishing point. We'll draw down to our station point. I'll pull out a little bit so you can see that. There we go, okay. And then we need a line from the left vanishing point down to the station point, right there. And then, of course, we need now 90 degrees from our station point up to I'll need my bigger ruler, up to the horizon line, okay? So you guys know this already. 90 degrees now from that line through the station point and back up to and through on the horizon line right there, right? And there's our right vanishing point. So I'll label that RVP right here, right vanishing point. Okay, now we're ready for our measuring points. Remember, swinging vanishing points. Or actually, before I do that, we could go ahead and get our diminishment. Maybe that's easier. Yeah, that's easier. So let's do that. Let's just go ahead and diminish the right plane of our cube back to the right vanishing point here. And here I'll diminish that through, right? Okay. So now we can start to swing our right measuring point. So remember, from the right vanishing point through the station point, this line, we want to swing it, swing it up to the horizon line. So we're recreating a new measuring point, a right plane measuring point. So again, what I do, you could take a string and swivel it, a point here, a string with a pencil on the end and swivel it. That's a lot of work, and to be more accurate, I like to just measure. So I'm going to measure mine. Mine might be just a little bit different. It'll be close. So I've got 9 7/8. So 9 7/8. So I'll swing that over. 9 7/8 will be right there. So I'll make a dot, put a point there, and that is my right right measuring point, RMP. So that is for our right plane. A measuring point anywhere along this plane now will go back to the right. Let's do the same thing from the left. Remember, picking up from exercise 29. So this is going to swing, remember, just like this, up to the horizon line from the left finishing point. Or you can think of it this way. This line that we've created will be equal distance up here. So we'll measure this from the left finishing point to the station point. I have 8 7/8. That's what I have. So I'm going to recreate 8 7/8, which is right here. Yours might be a little different right there. And I'll label that left measuring point. Why left plane? It's just the opposite. So this is the left measuring point for this plane. This is our left plane, right? This is our right plane. Here's our measuring point for that. Okay, so just like we did before, now from our right plane, our flat space, this is flat, this is flat, we go back to our right measuring point, right? Just enough until it bisects our flat plane and it bisects our perspective plane right there. Bingo. That's where we want, that's the distance we want there. Okay. And now we want the same thing on the left. So from the left flat space to the left measuring point right there, bring it back. Of course, it can go all the way through, but right there is where we want, where it bisects. I'll put a stronger dot there so you can see it. Let me come in a little bit, make sure it's clear. Right there, let me come out just a little bit for the vanishing point. There you go. So there we go. Now we've bisected those two because of our measuring points. Now we don't need our measuring points for this exercise anymore. Now we go back to our left and right vanishing points. Keep that in mind. So from our measurement here, that little mark we made, up, we go up to our diminishment, stop. Same thing over here, up to our diminishment, stop. Okay. Let me darken this in so you see it right there and right there. And now from the right corner, we go back to the left vanishing point here and on over. Same thing on here from the left corner back to the right vanishing point. Pretty simple stuff now. Rudimentary two-point perspective. The only difficulty I think you have is again with the measuring point. Don't get those mixed up. Okay, and now we need the bottom. Now, we've already got these little overdrawn lines. Forget about them. So from this bottom, back to the left vanishing point, over. From the left corner back to the right vanishing point, and over. Where they meet up is the back or the bottom plane of our box. And then I can show you that that works. There they meet right there. Nice tight pencil. And there we go. I'll keep that a little lighter. I'll darken this up, the top plane. There's basically, essentially, exercise 29 recreated. Now let's go further. So let's recreate this cube 4 or 5 times, right? And we'll do that with a 45-degree measuring point. So you know how to do that is you want to come over and 45 degrees is created from each corner to corner, correct? So we'll go 45 now through this corner, the front corner through the back corner, all the way through to the horizon line. We'll stop there at the horizon line or eye level. That's our 45-degree measuring point right there. It's 45. Okay? So now what we can do is start to utilize gridding, right, for the placement, the bottom placement of our new forms in space for our cube. So from the 45-degree vantage measuring point, I'm going to use red because it's a little bit sharper here on out, right through this corner here, out, right? We can come through this corner too for later on here, right, and out, but especially through from the 45-degree corner out through there. And I'll put arrows here, in here, and also here. Now we have some guides for us to utilize, right? So we're good to go there. Okay, so now our next step is to begin to help ourselves recreate this particular cube. Okay, so where do we go from here? So do you know where we go from here? So what do? You might get confused here. What you need now is to bring this length over, touch it here, okay? So we have to find some way to bring a distance over. So from the right vanishing point, right through here, and over, we're going to overdraw a little bit. Where they meet, remember, right there, there's where we can start to base more measurements from. So we'll create a grid, and then we can pick cubes that we want. So through here, right, all the way through. So now we're good to go. We can bring this through here, right through there, okay, and over and through. So now we have that to measure with. So we've got even more to work with. So I can start to bring, let's see, even back and through here. So we'll start to even create more grids through here, right through there. Okay, got that. Now we can take from our 45-degree measuring point, we can create more lines through here, right through this corner. From a few lessons back, right in through there. Now it creates touching points here and here, right? So we can continue to work and bring this forward. I can bring this one, this corner here, even more forward, right through there, right? And we've got touching points there, touching points there, here, okay? Line it up, let it run through there. Line it up, let it run through where it touches there. Bingo. We're kind of on our way even further. So now we have another touching point right here. Forget this. This was the earlier measuring. Right in through there is where they touch. That's another point through there. We'll bring that over. And what you're going to notice, it starts to get close to outside the cone, so it's going to get a little bit more distorted even further. Let's bring one more back here. That should give us enough for 5. Let's bring out another touching point from our 45-degree measuring point through these corners here. There we go, right through there and out. Okay, let's bring another one over. We have another touching point there. Okay, so pretty quickly you see how you can start to create pretty strong grid right in through there. So I think we have enough. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So let's build some cubes up now. Let's build 5 equally spaced cubes now in perspective. We've already got 1. That's a perfect cube now. With our 45-degree measuring point, we also gridded the ground a little bit too to help us out. Certainly to continue to create multiples. And we'll do this exercise, I think 31, I've got us in the sky plane too as well. All right, so let's create, we can do this pretty quickly. Now we can take from our top of our cube here, this line here, and we can kind of overdraw through further. Now we begin to set in our height. So watch this. So to create more cubes from this point, here's the ground corner, right corner of our cube, build up a height here. There we go there. We've got a height right there. See how it starts to elongate? We start to get closer to being outside the cone. This one really gets symmetrical because we're right in that center part of the cone. So we'll bring its height up here, right? And we'll keep going. We'll bring this one, its height up here, right there. And then lastly, we'll bring that one that touches right there, and we'll bring its height up right in through there. So we're already going to create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 perfect cubes in nice spatial diminishment with our first 2 measuring points for our 2-point planes, and then we made our 45-degree measuring point to help us grid them out and put them on the ground. Really quick technique, isn't it? It's going pretty fast. So I'll darken that in so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, it's the front corner. Now let's create space going back to the right plane. So we've got this one here, right? We see that. I'm going to darken that in a little bit here. Okay, and now I'll draw through here. I need that corner, that plane right there. Okay, where that ends down here, that's the end of the cube. We can now bring that up to our diminishment line right there. That tells us a big story, because now we can take that line, or that point here, drive it all the way back to the left vanishing point here, right? Go all the way, let's line it up nice and cleanly, go all the way through. I'll darken it in from here, and now we've got a row of these cubes, and now from each one of these points we can go back to the right vanishing point. Okay, So now we'll go through here. It meets up there. And we'll go through here now. That meets up there. And we'll go through here. And that meets up there as well. So take a look at what we've got now. Now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cubes. Now let's finish the inside parts, the parts that if these were opaque we wouldn't see, but because we're omniscient we'll pretend like they're glass, right? We can see through them a little bit better. So you can see how the scaling, now if you want equal spacing, because this could be, we could say this line was 1 foot, or we could, if there was tiny people in this composition, this might be 20 feet. It depends on ultimately the ending part of your scale. So let's finish these out in the back part of our drawing. So here's where the vertical goes at the end, up, lines up pretty good. Here's where you want to always keep that pencil nice and clean, right? Nice and sharp right there. Then we end this corner right through there, up and over, and then we've got the rest of them. So tighten that up a little bit right there. Okay, there you go. So we've got now 5 perfectly created cubes. They're equal on all sides, and we've got 5 of them. Look how fast we recreated. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, one other thing I want to do, I want to prove to you that they're equal space. Remember how we did with our 1 point plane? We'll use our left point to prove this. Remember how we can prove and create equal spaces. So let's do that. We can do that by finding, we'll do this, we're finding the center of this plane. It's kind of already done there for us, so I'll do it in blue so you can see it. So we'll use our crossing X technique here and also here. There's our center, right? So from that center point, I'll drive that back to the left vanishing point. I do this in order to prove to you that this works. So there's the center driven back. Now we take, remember, to recreate this space, from this point to this corner, right? This should line up with that point right there. From here, here, and here, all those points will line up. Look at that, voila, right? There, I'll draw that line to show you. Make sure I get my ruler nice and tight. And that helps prove that both of these techniques work. There it is, right there. And of course, you can continue to create these equal spaces. So now we have in 2-point perspective, equal spacing with perfect cubes, recreating them. Of course, we could recreate these all over a little bit. So I'll shade in these front planes a little bit and give it even more dimension. So in exercise, this is exercise 30 and 31. We're going to do the same thing, but we'll do it in the sky plane. We'll go to a new page and create them in the sky plane. So here's a tip. As I'm shading these, I'm shading the corners a little darker, but as I shade, the further they go away, I'm lightening up the shading ever so slightly to give a little bit of extra depth and dimension. As things recede, they lighten up a little bit and they get softer. And then here's another tip. If you get a little smudging in your drawing, take your kneaded eraser, really break it apart like so, and it magically kind of cleans itself. I don't understand the chemistry of that, but I don't have to, and neither do you. I won't test you on that, I promise. But no, it cleans itself up a little bit, and then you can kind of flatten it out, maybe kind of make a stamp out of it like that, and then you can kind of just glide and gloss over any smudges. I've got a few smudges from the ruler that I like to get out, and it cleans up the drawing without erasing back everything too as well, which is kind of nice. So there you go. More 2-point perspective, 45-degree measuring point to help us with our perfect cube that we created with our left and right 2-point measuring point as well. So that again was exercise 30. There we go. All right, okay, there you go. Let's go on now to exercise 31.